I'm Judy Johnson, the current president of the Collaborative Law Institute of Minnesota for 2024. And I'm fortunate that I persuaded Josh Rampi to visit with me today. We already talked a little bit about the work that he does as a family specialist in collaborative team divorce. But Josh, I wanted to ask you a couple more questions that might be, more specifically helpful to people who are reaching out to us. When you run into somebody that you know that wants to think about working with us, how do you tell them how to find us and start working?
It's a great question. I think the first place that I'll steer folks to is collaborativelaw.org. And there's a drop-down box to find professionals. And in there you can find the financial neutrals and family specialists and attorneys, and you can kind of browse through. And if there's somebody that you're interested in meeting with, shoot them an email or drop them a voicemail and ask for a consult. And ultimately it's about being able to learn more about the process, but then also learn more about who you'd be working with. Right. There's something about sitting in a room with somebody, being able to share, this is what my family is. This is the needs of my family. What do you think? What does it look like?
It's got to be a good personal fit.
Yep.
This is a very, very intimate personal services work. And so people have to feel confident about who they find, and due diligence sometimes is talking to a couple of different people.
Yeah, I would say that's a great advice, as well as being able to schedule a couple of them, and then you'll get a sense usually kind of like, yep, this is an individual who I want to work with, or I've got some more information, I need to sit on a little bit, and then send them follow-up questions or meet with another professional.
Yeah. What advice would you give to couples that are thinking about working with us in terms of how do they get the most out of us? Mm-hmm. What are some tips to our listeners on, and maybe just even think about some folks that you've worked with. How did they get the most out of you? Who is it, when you think back, that got the best work out of you, that made you work the hardest?
I think folks who show up and are prepared to be honest, not only with me, but also with their co-parent or with their partner about what they're interested in, what they want. I think it's important to be open, which is, I think, tough.
Keeping a curious mind is so hard in a process like ours, because there are fear factors in, that they would have maybe in another kind of process. But letting go of that and really kind of being open to what the future might hold, that's hard. Mm-hmm. How do you help people maintain that sense of curiosity and openness?
I think it depends if I'm going to be kind of a blunt and through the front door and say something like, you don't know what you don't know. And I need to kind of firmly redirect folks in the sense of maybe the choices that they're making or the way they're operating out of their emotion is not helpful for them or their family. And so it's being able to redirect, you're here because you want the best for your family. Yeah. And so oftentimes I'm redirecting folks back to why they chose this process.
It's so common that if a couple is facing separation or divorce, that one will be kind of ahead of the other in terms of thinking that it's a good idea. And so that can be really tough if they're not in the same place. How do you deal with that as a family specialist in collaborative team divorce?
Sometimes I'll share a little bit about the research around couples that will go into counseling, into marriage counseling. The most common marriages will often be in decline for about 2 years. And so, which means maybe one partner might be in the decline and the other one may be oblivious. Mm. And so by the time folks end up sitting across from us at a table, that's typically the case. We don't always have folks that are evenly matched where they are in the process.
It's almost never.
I've rarely ever. And if that is the case, they've both done a lot of work to get there.
And that's right.
But oftentimes there's kind of a differential between the two. And that's totally appropriate. It's not going to be a shock to you and I if that happens. But it's working with both individuals to be able to explain, like, your spouse is going to be way ahead of you and more anxious to get the ball rolling and get things done. And you may be more in shock of where that's at. I often think about a divorce readiness scale. Sometimes I'll ask folks, if 0 is I'm in complete shock, I can't believe this happened to me, I'm still recovering from the news that my spouse wants a divorce. And 10 is, boy, I have worked through it, I've gone to counseling, I'm ready to sign the judgment decree. Where are you at? And I'll often ask folks what their number is, and then which is useful information. And then I'll usually explain that that number is going to fluctuate every day.
That's true.
If not by the hour, depending on what you're dealing with.
I've seen, with some of the couples that we've worked with, where in the beginning one starts in being ahead, and then the other one is kind of leapfrogging over. Hey, I can see my future life, and I can see some brightness there at the end of the tunnel. So,
and even the most adamant, I'm a 10, so to speak, who comes in during the process, they never stay at a 10 the entire process, because it is an emotional experience. It is a transition, and so they move back or forth.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, being honoring of where folks are at, and then coaching folks to be able to not only understand themselves in the process, but then be able to understand their partner.
Right. This is a process that happens on many different levels. It happens on a financial level, on a developmental level. It happens, in relational level, and it happens on a legal level. And we have to be humble in collaborative practice because, here's people's entire lives. The amount of time that we're working with them is that much. Mm-hmm. That's how much time we have to join with that family and try and, help them find the best future that they can. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for joining us and answering these questions for people. And some of them are kind of tough, but I think our listeners will understand. Yeah. But it is, our statewide website is collaborativelaw.org. Mm-hmm. The reason we have that website name is that collaborative practice started here in Minnesota a few decades ago and then caught fire all over the world. And I don't think everybody knows we were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2023. And we were honored that it went to a human rights activist in Iran and an absolutely amazing, courageous woman. We were honored just to be named with her. But just having that alone was an honor. So thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And I hope all of our listeners have an absolutely great day the rest of the day. Thank you.